as Luca takes a turn for the worse, and the FBI begins to approach and pursue Thony. She finds herself more reliant on Arman than she's comfortable with, especially as she gets more familiar with his line of work. In terms of new characters, or at least ones that we're properly introduced to this episode, it's a bit of a laundry list, so we're going to go through it quickly. There's Hayak, who is Arman's boss, and also the person who his father worked for when he was a child. There's Councilman Eric Knight, who is a corrupt official who Hayak is using in order to purchase a hotel in Las Vegas. There's Nadia, who we met in episode 1, who is not only Arman's wife, but also seems to be his business partner in some ways. There is Marco, who is Luca's father / Thony's husband, who's still back in Manila. There's Mateo, who is Arman's right-hand man. There's Dr. Daniel Saroyan, who is Hayak's family's main doctor, and it seems like the main reason Hayak has him on payroll is because there's something up with his son. There's Renee Lawson, who is an FBI agent who watches over her partner Garrett, who apparently just came off the bench because he gets a little bit too overzealous with his investigations and may possibly do stuff that's illegal in order to get the results he wants. Following that, there's Carlos, who apparently moves up once Mateo dies in this episode. And lastly, there's Viktor, who is an Armenian. We know that he's Armenian. I'm not sure if he's an Armenian arms dealer that needs weapons from Hayak's organization for the war back home, or maybe something else. Either way, Viktor is a client of Hayak looking for weapons, and because of situations this episode, he doesn't get what he wants quickly. Getting into the recap, to begin, we have to establish the FBI. Garrett and Renee are the FBI agents we saw in the last episode in the car. Unfortunately for both Fiona and Thony, they're mainly focused on them, especially Thony, because the way Garrett makes it seem, they have no other leads. Arman is so enclosed that they can't find anybody to become a CI, and in fact, Theo was their last one, and surprisingly, Arman, well, not Arman, but Hayak's son got rid of him before he could really, reveal something. So with that in mind, Garrett first tries to interact with Thony through him changing his daughter's diaper and talking to her while Thony's cleaning the women's restroom of a bowling alley. Fiona steps in when he's starting to really get into who Arman is and all that, and so that ends that situation. He follows up later by trying to use Fiona being undocumented in order to get some information out of her, but Thony comes in after her helping Arman with cleaning up some dead bodies, and she shuts that down, similar to how she treated Alonzo, their boss, in the last episode. So even though technically in that situation she doesn't have much power, she uses what she does have in order to get out the situation and come out looking fairly good. But one of the problems with that situation is it really triggers Fiona in terms of her being undocumented for over 15 years. And it also leads to the reveal that when it comes to her son Chris, she didn't make it into America, and she didn't make it into America quick enough for him to become a citizen. So now she's forced to reveal to him the reason why she won't sign off on his permit paperwork and all that is because he's a undocumented dreamer at this point. Now, as for whether or not Jazz is as well, that's hard to say since we don't know what her status is, who her father is, if it's the same one as Chris, etc., etc. Getting into why Thony had to leave the bowling alley, the reason is Arman, Viktor, Mateo, Carlos, and Viktor's support staff, they were supposed to have an arms deal go down for rocket launchers, machine guns, the usual weaponry that people use in war. One problem is that somebody's stealing from Hayak / Arman, at least almost half their entire inventory, or at least the inventory that was meant for Viktor. And being that Viktor sees this as a huge slight against him, and especially his country, because, there's a war, he decides, between him and Mateo, a shootout happens, and despite, Arman standing there, not even ducking for cover, he doesn't get hit at all, but Mateo does get shot and dies, and some of Viktor's men get shot and died. Luckily, Arman is able to take control of the situation, and he kind of gives cool heads, but Vick only gives 24 hours to get some turnaround in order for there not to be more bloodshed. Now, while the arms deal in that situation isn't going well, at the very least when it comes to Arman, when it comes to possibly getting a hotel for Hayak so they can launder money, that's looking a little bit better. He's working with one of the councilmen named Eric Knight, who he's light level corrupt. He's corrupt in the sense that he entertains Hayak and Arman, and even Nadia, who is part of this business deal apparently, but he's not like deep into it. We're told he gets paid, but not paid how much. We do know that he likes caviar and hanging out at the club, especially to avoid a council meeting, but whether he's just a new guy who they easily picked up or he's somebody who actually has power, it's hard to say. For what we know, he could be like Hayak's son, where he's connected to somebody with power and that's why he's important, but otherwise he's not a major player. It's not clear. All that we know for sure is that when it comes to Arman getting this hotel deal, that is a major thing that's on Hayak's priority list, and with Nadia helping him, it seems like he might succeed. But what almost blows up that whole deal is the fact that Luca is starting to get a high fever and he even gets a kind of virus that I can't pronounce offhand. But it's at that point where Thony needs to either take him to the emergency room and possibly get reported for being undocumented, or, as she does, she brings Luca to Arman and forces Arman to take them to Dr. Saroyan. There, Thony uses her knowledge of not just Luca's diagnosis, but her own experience as a doctor to properly diagnose her son and get the medication he needs. With this, Dr. Saroyan's impressed, but unfortunately, when it comes to Hayak, he's upset that somebody meant for his son and his family to take care of them at a moment's notice got used for Luca, and with that, he's ready to shoot Thony right there and there. Luckily, thanks to Thony seeing who was stealing from Arman and from Hayak, she's able to get out of that situation. But unfortunately, just as she starts to win over Hayak, she has to now increasingly worry about Garrett and Renee, who now have evidence that she knows Arman, since Arman, when he was taking Luca and Thony to see Dr. Saroyan, they have pictures of them together. So with that, there's no denying their association. So the first highlight for me definitely has to be Thony showing himself as an equal to Dr. Saroyan, and it's mainly just for the fact that I don't know what type of shows and movies you watch, but some of the ones that I do, you see a lot of people who are engineers in different countries, doctors, lawyers, and then they come over here and they can't practice. So with that, they become like Thony, they become cleaners, they become cab drivers, and I feel like in a lot of those types of shows and movies, they don't get to have that chance to kind of be in the field that they're in and kind of live in that moment. But with Thony, she was, while Dr. Saroyan was like unsure about what to do, Thony was in there, and as we saw in the first episode, her quick thinking led to good results. In this case, her son not dying. And I can only hope that with this knowledge that Thony has, they keep tapping into it, either her procedure of how to handle things or else her actual medical knowledge, so that her being the cleaner, or aka the cleaning lady, isn't just about her using that medical knowledge in order to make sure there's no evidence left in case the cops come around, but also can be used to really show that her being a doctor is not a title they're just giving her because it makes it look good when it comes to the marketing or whatever. She's an actual doctor. She thinks like a doctor. She knows how to act like a doctor in situations that are emergencies. And I just feel that I'm not an immigrant in terms of, voluntarily. But I don't know, something with the way Thony operates and her story just gets me in some type of way. And seeing her really get to use her knowledge and show that she is equals despite how the world sees her, it gives me a weird sense of pride that I don't understand, but I like it. The second highlight deals with Arman and just understanding why he works for Hayak. And I have to partly credit that to us getting to see Chris realize that he's undocumented, and how between Luca and Chris you get a bit more informed about who Arman is. For when you look at Luca and you see Thony in a hospital looking at her son basically in a vulnerable position, you can see what Arman was talking about when he was speaking of his dad having a heart attack and then his family relying on Hayak, who his dad was working for in order to pay for all his medical bills. And I wouldn't say in a machismo way. You can see Arman, joining Hayak in order to shield himself from vulnerability and having to be reliant on somebody, but everybody, man, woman, non-binary, etc., wants to be self-sufficient. They want a sense of autonomy. And I feel that, as you see with Chris this episode, it's a very difficult thing to be a young person and realize you lack power, and that's just in general. But then when you add on the fact that Chris is an undocumented person, he doesn't even have dreamer status, which means he cannot get a permit to get a car like an average teenager. Getting a job is going to be difficult for him, and as he establishes, the idea of cleaning like his mother after other people, that's something he can't wrap his mind around. So when you think about Arman and what he probably had to do, since he also is likely undocumented, unless he was able to get an asylum visa, you can see parallels, and without using flashbacks, we're able to see the different parts of Arman's life. And I think when it comes to him joining Hayak, it wasn't a case of, it may not solely have been a case of, easy access, since Hayak is there. He grew up around him, so he knows who he is, how his business works from watching his dad and maybe his mom cleaning for him. I think it also, you have to factor in, it could just be the case of, when it comes to all the alternatives, either A, it didn't fit the timeline of when Arman wanted to be on his own, or maybe it also was a case of Arman tried to go the legit route with going to school, going to, pull his bootstraps up and all that, but between racism and not being lucrative, maybe just multiple setbacks that despite all that he did, he kept reaching all these roadblocks, he decided instead to use his intelligence, use his social skills and whatnot, with a business that's already established, that doesn't require all this paperwork that is holding him back, or even the people who, because of their own bias, racism, what have you, were making it so his life was more difficult than it had to be. Because under Hayak, he has a certain amount of power because of Hayak's name and his own, his own reputation. He has his own people who are working under him, and yes, he's doing a legal activity that seemingly has led to his father disowning him, though it could be something else as well, we'll get into in a second. But I don't know if it's still like how I said in episode 1, I'm hoping there's more to Arman than meets the eye, but I do feel that there is a possibility that we're being set up to understand that, like when it comes to Thony and Fiona, there's so little you know about people, and you could easily surmise something based off your own bias and stereotypes. But when you really get to know them or in their story, you'll realize there is a wealth of information, a wealth of experience that your puny, now I won't say puny intellect, but I would definitely say your small-mindedness could easily keep you from learning about, especially if you're really committed to your ignorance. In terms of on defense, for us, pretty much if somebody's a government employee, agent, official, that's what we have a bit of an issue with right now. For when it comes to Garrett and Renee, I feel like we got that usual dynamic of the woman has to be the straight-laced one who does things by the book and comes off a little bit boring because of that. And then you got this wild card dude who probably gets a lot of good results, but because of how he usually gets the results, now he's in trouble. He's kind of having to walk the line a little bit, and he has a babysitter with him. And then with Eric, I think the problem is, as much as you recognize with how big Hayak is and Arman and Extension, they're going to have to work with politicians, but Eric doesn't really bring anything to the table besides his title as a councilman at that. So without having a notable personality, without him even really talking about what he brings besides his role as an elected official, I'm not really that impressed or interested in Eric, and almost question why are they focused on a councilman instead of like a state senator, a governor, or somebody who's a bit bigger. For if Hayak and Arman are working with Armenians doing arms deals, why the hell would a councilman help at all? I feel like that's a little bit too small time considering what they're doing. So in terms of questions left unanswered, maybe this is something odd for me to say, but I kind of wonder if Nadia's a beard. For usually on shows like this, is especially nowadays, there's usually one gay character, and we haven't seen one yet. So with the way things are, a part of me wants to question if maybe Arman's going to be that character, not maybe a notable reveal. For he notes that his father hasn't talked to him in a long time, and I can't imagine his father not talking to him just because he works for Hayak. Yes, when it comes to Arman's parents, they left their home countries to get away from the gang violence and people like Hayak, but then they end up working for him anyway. So I don't know if maybe it is the fact that they might have felt their sacrifice was in vain, or it could be because their faith, their beliefs, or whatever. Having a son who's not only into the gangster life but also gay is an issue for them, even if he has somebody like Nadia who acts as a beard and kind of covers up his sexuality. In terms of what we think could happen next, I'm really waiting for Fiona to follow up on the FBI questioning her about Thony's relationships, because with her being shook after Garrett seeming like ice storming in, it seems like she completely forgot about the whole fact that Garrett was asking about Thony, showing pictures of a man that Fiona never saw, and considering Thony was just getting on Fiona about dealing ecstasy to that guy at that club, having the FBI storm in looking for her, asking Fiona questions in order to find out more about Thony, I feel like that's going to raise a few flags that she wants to figure out, what's going on. Alongside that, pretty much following up on a question left unanswered, I really want to know why Nadia and Arman are together, and I hope that's something that comes up next, because they're not really I recognize not all couples have to be cutesy and all have their hands all over each other, kisses on the cheek and all that, but when you look at the fact that Arman doesn't participate in Nadia's little orgy things at their house, when you look at how he interacts with her in terms of body language and all that, a part of me wonders why. Is it that... Yeah, just why? Because did he... I think when it comes to Nadia, I just want to know, what is her purpose? Is she, as we assume, truly a partner of Arman's business with Hayak? Could it be that she's the one who owns the club because she's a citizen and also has a clean record? So, she holds all the titles while they do all the legal stuff, so in case they go down, things still can keep going. What is her purpose in all this? How did Arman meet her? Because I don't think that's Hayak's daughter, niece, or anything like that, because I would think he would have said something by now. So I just hope that one of the things we find out next is what's going on with her.